Hello, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you to everyone who is joining us from other places. I was quite excited when you were talking. You said we've got Belgium, we've got Spain, we've got Germany, and we have Sevenoaks, which is my hometown. So thank you, Sevenoaks. In case you don't really know who I am or what I do, I'm Harriet Minter, and I'm the editor of The Guardian's Women in Leadership section. If you haven't had a look at the section, and I do get lots of people who say, oh, I'm not really a Guardian reader, so I don't know what you do. We are a section on the Guardian's website that is dedicated to talking about women and work. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what I've learned since I started that section, and I've been running it, and a little bit about how I think that is changing the workplace for women. So Women in Leadership was actually launched nearly 3 years ago. It's my baby, which, by the way, is something only ever women say about their projects. But it's my baby, and I founded it, I've kept it going, and I'm immensely, immensely proud of it. It kind of came about in a slightly strange way. So I've been at The Guardian for nearly 6 years now, and I was hired to be a launch editor for new projects. And I'd been doing that for about 18 months, nearly 2 years, and I kind of got to the end of all the projects that they had on the list for me, which is quite a strange place to be, because you're a bit like, what do I do now? So I sat down with my boss, and he essentially said, we're not quite sure what to do with you, but we really like you, so hang around here and something will come up. And so I had a really fun 6 months, because I essentially had a job which meant I could kind of stick my nose into things, see what was working and what wasn't working, see what we should be doing more of, and basically critique everything. And in doing that, I kind of noticed this trend. So I noticed that every time we wrote anything about women and work, it did really, really well. But we didn't have any strategy about it. We were just kind of throwing stuff up there and hoping for the best. I also noticed this other strange thing, which was every time I got on the tube, somebody was reading Lean In. I thought, that feels like there's something going on here. It was also the time that the Davis report, which looked at the number of women on boards, was launching, and the time when the EU was talking about whether or not we should have mandatory quotas for women at board level. So there was kind of a business perspective, there was a political perspective, and there was definitely a societal perspective. There was change. And I really felt that unless we took advantage of that, we were going to be left behind. So I created a business plan. I created a business plan which showed exactly why The Guardian should have a section that just talked about women and work. If you know anything about journalists, you'll know that we're not terribly comfortable with plans. We're really not comfortable with spreadsheets. And we really have not mastered PowerPoint, which is why there are no slides today. But I really worked at this business plan, and I was so proud of it, put my heart and soul into it. And I took it to my boss, and he kind of had a look, and he was like, yeah, we'll think about it. And sort of just pushed it to one side. And I was really upset. I was like, why are you not leaping on this? This is great. He's like, well, maybe, but I'm not sure there's really anything there. So I took it to a few other people, and I tried to get them excited about it, and everyone was kind of like, is this a thing? Dunno. People were interested, but there was no traction. Nobody was really driving it. And I started to get really, really frustrated, because if you know anything about me, you know that I don't like the word no, and I don't have a lot of patience. So when I have an idea, I want it to happen, and I want it to happen right now, mainly because in about 5 minutes' time, I'm going to be bored of it. So I started to get more and more frustrated at work. And that actually made me probably quite a difficult employee, if I'm honest. Definitely made me a bit stroppy. Definitely meant that I wasn't terribly motivated. I had this brilliant thing, and I couldn't get it off the ground. So that's where I was about 3 years ago. Fast forward 3 years, the one thing that everyone now asks me, and when you do a project like this where you get to meet lots of great people and you get to learn lots of stuff, everyone will ask you this too, is what is the best piece of advice anyone has given you? And actually, it turns out the best piece of advice I've ever received, I was given way before I started Women in Leadership. I got it when I first started at The Guardian. And I'd started at The Guardian after having been at a startup, very small startup, for 5 years. So I'd gone from an organisation with 4 people in, at our biggest, to an organisation with over 1,000. And I didn't really know how to navigate that. And this piece of advice was told to me, and I thought, God, that's such good advice. I am going to write that down on a Post-it, and I'm going to stick it on the front of my computer so that I see it every day and I remember it. Nowadays, of course, we would Instagram it, but that was 6 years ago, and we didn't do that. So I had this Post-it, and it sat on the front of my computer, and I saw it every single day, and I ignored it. It was there, this brilliant, brilliant piece of advice staring me in the face, and I just didn't take it, because that's what we do with good advice, right? So there I was, frustrated, annoyed, probably being a bit difficult, and staring me in the face was the answer. And what was staring me in the face was this one sentence, and it said, proceed until apprehended. Just do it. But Nike's already taken that one, so we'll go with proceed until apprehended. So I kept telling people about my idea. And eventually, one of the people that I told said to me, hang on, do you know what? I had a really similar idea. She worked in our events team. She was like, I really wanted to run an event for women in business. But kind of every time I've talked to anybody about it, they've gone, don't really know. So it hasn't gone anywhere. Why don't we team up and see if we can do this together? So we booked a meeting room in The Guardian under a code name. And we found some women to be on a panel. And we asked one of our friends who worked on a different section, would you put a little advert up on the website for us? And 48 hours after that advert went live, the event had sold out. And when the event sold out, I went to my boss and I said, I know you weren't that excited about this, but I've kind of done this thing. And if you just come to the event, I promise, if you don't see it after that, I won't ever mention it again. He's a very understanding man, so he kind of thought it was quite funny. He was like, okay, come on then. Came to the event. He was the only man in a room full of 120 women. Gentlemen, I'm sure you can tell me what scary feeling that is, right? The only man in a room full of 120 women. And at the end of it, I said to him, so what did you think? Did you enjoy it? He said, yeah, I really did. It was a really good event, great panel. But there's one thing that was really strange to me. I said, okay, what's that? He said, I really wanted to ask a question, but because I was the only man in the room, I felt like I couldn't. Is that what it's like to be a woman? And I said, yes, sometimes that is what it's like to be a woman. And he said, oh, yeah, you know what? You're onto something here. We need to do this. And 6 weeks later, Women in Leadership launched. And I'd like to tell you that we launched, and it was this fantastic success. But we had really a bit of a baptism of fire. So we did have a fantastic success for exactly 5 days. So in our first 5 days, as you know, when you start a new project, you set targets for yourself. And I like to set targets which I think I can meet. In our first 5 days, we'd hit our target for our first year. So I was quite proud of myself. I was obviously in no way smug about it, just a little bit. But I was really pleased. And then the next week happened, and our stats just plummeted. And all those people that had been reading it in the first week and had been so excited about it hadn't come back for the second week. I said, that's okay. That happens. I've launched lots of these projects before. I know the cycle. I know that you have a big high, and then it's a bit of a drop. It'll be fine. But they didn't really come back in the third week either, or the fourth. And then I started to get a bit panicked because I'd really pushed to make this happen. I'd kind of put my reputation on the line with it, and it wasn't really working. So I went back and I looked at what wasn't working. And I realized that I'd probably tried to be a bit too ambitious. Because when I launched Women in Leadership, my aim of it had been to change gender equality in the workplace for everyone. Rather arrogantly, I had assumed that the reason that we didn't have 50-50 at board level for men and women was just because nobody had given it any good thinking. I thought, 6 months of me on this, we'll have the whole problem sorted. And so what I'd done was I'd created a website which spoke to people who were in business and were tasked with solving that diversity problem, which is a really interesting website. But it actually only speaks to about 10 people, because there's one person in every business whose job that is, and everyone else has other things to worry about. So I thought about it again. I was like, okay, well, what do we have to do now? We have to start thinking about how do we grow this site? How do we get people reading it? And so I went and looked at which of the articles had done best. And I also looked at who had signed up to read our newsletter. And when I did that, what I realized was that actually the people that were signing up were women, mostly at kind of mid to senior management level. The articles they were reading were the ones about how to help themselves. What we'd created was a section that was going to help a whole load of women. I just had to give them what they wanted. So we did a bit of a 360. No, not a 360, a 180. Otherwise, we would have come back to where we started. So we did a 180, and we flipped our content plan, and the site started to grow. And it was exciting and amazing, and people responded so positively to it. And when you start to do something like this, it really changes what you think of as success. So a little bit about me. I was brought up, as I told you, in Kent, and I came from a family where they had their own business. And if anyone has run your own business, you know, sometimes it does really well and sometimes it doesn't do very well. And so I've been brought up on this kind of roller coaster. And all I had known throughout my childhood was, when I'm an adult, I'm going to grow up and get a really good job that pays really well, and I'm going to have a salary every single month because I do not want that roller coaster. I became a journalist, which I think was a mistake on that basis. But I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm all about getting to the top as fast as I possibly can. And when I really enjoyed work, I really enjoyed it because it was an intellectual challenge. It's like, how do I solve a problem? How do I fix something? But starting Women in Leadership was really different because the reward I got from it, definitely not financial, was actually kind of helping someone else fix the problem and seeing how they progressed from it. And I was, for a while, a little bit uncomfortable about that because I was like, I don't want to be a stereotypical woman. I don't want to be put in a nurturing role. I don't want to be the person who helps other people. No, I am a tough businesswoman. I want to get to the top and crush them with my stiletto. Come on. But that really turned out to be less rewarding. And I had to really start to rethink how I defined success. So while I was having this small existential crisis, I hit bump 2 for Women in Leadership. And we'd been going about 3 months by this point. And at that stage, my team were called into a room, and we were told that we would be going through a restructure. You work for a big organisation, you know what a restructure means. It's never great to be the newbie in a restructure. Last one in, first one out. We were the newest section. And I was really worried. Because although we were doing well, we weren't doing so well that everyone was leaping up and down with excitement. And we didn't really know where we were going to be or what we were going to be. So I went away and I was like, okay, what do you do in this situation? This is what you do. You start creating spreadsheets showing your growth. You start presenting to people, telling them how great you are and exactly why they should back you. You do everything you can to show the business case for why you should succeed. It didn't really occur to me that actually I'd done that previously when I tried to launch Women in Leadership in the first place, and it hadn't really worked. I just went back to it. I was like, nope, that's the official line, that's what I'm going to do. Unsurprisingly, it didn't work this time either. And I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I couldn't get anyone to listen to me. As part of this restructure, they brought in a new management team. And the head of that team was a woman. So I was like, yes, win. I run the Women in Leadership section. She is a woman. She is a leader. This is going to be brilliant. But actually, she just took a basic line on it. She was like, you know what? It's not about whether I feel it or whether I love it. It's about what does this look like as part of my team and do I need it? That's why she's a leader. So we were in this kind of weird no man's land for about a month. And it was quite stressful. And I generally think of myself as somebody who's really, really good with stress. So I didn't really notice how much it was getting to me. Thought it was a bit strange that I seemed to have a permanent cold. Thought it was a bit frustrating that when I went home I didn't have time to do anything other than go straight to bed. Thought it was a bit sad that I hadn't really seen any of my friends for this entire period. But I was just fixated on trying to stay alive, basically. I was fixated on trying to keep my sight going. And it took a toll. I put on about 2.5 stone, which I can't really afford. And I didn't sleep. And I was really, really ill. And I reached a point where I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I don't know how to fix myself. Do you have that thing where you come in the morning and you look at your inbox and it's filled with emails for random things that you've signed up to, but you never open, so you just go through deleting all of them, yeah? I do that every morning. I probably get rid of about 50 things. So I was doing that one morning and I saw an email which said, how to be more resilient. And I would have just deleted it, but right at that moment I was like, oh, that's what I need. So I clicked on it. And it was an email from the School of Life. Do you know if anyone knows the School of Life? They do kind of anything from lectures to week-long courses about kind of the big issues in life. I think they have one which is like, what is death? You know, really big issues. And this was a day course and it was happening that Saturday. I thought, right, I'm going. So I signed up for the course and it was 8 hours long. And from those 8 hours, I've taken 2 things that I'm going to distill for you in 5 minutes. But you know what? They are life-changing, and really that's all that matters. So the first one is that resilience is not the same as endurance. And we get the two of them mixed up the whole time. So endurance is the ability to keep going. That's what endurance is. If our lives depended on it, if we absolutely had to, we could probably all get round a marathon. We could probably all crawl our way around those 26 miles if we absolutely had to. But endurance is when you do that and you get over the finish line and you collapse. Resilience is being able to crawl your way around those 26 miles, get over the finish line, and still have enough to keep going. It's about what do you need to put into your life to make sure that when it gets really stressful and it's taking a toll, you still have enough to keep going. That was really interesting to me because I was like, I don't feel like when we get to the end of this, I'm going to have anything left. So I started to think about what I needed to put into my life to build up my resilience. The other thing it taught me is that resilience is really like an adventure story. I'm about to ruin the plot of every single adventure movie for you from now on, so apologies for that. But when you watch them, you will now see that they basically all have the same structure. It's actually called The Hero's Journey. I think it has about 27 stages in total, but we're going to simplify it down to 5. The first stage is identifying the hero, so you. The second stage is identifying your quest, what it is you want to achieve, what it is you're going out there to get. And once you've identified that, you enter the third stage, where you're walking along the road, you're off, you know what you're doing, you're really excited about it, and suddenly a massive great pothole appears in front of you and you fall down to the bottom of it. You need to get to stage 5, which is achieving that quest. In order to do that, you need to hit stage 4. So stage 4 is really interesting, because when I tell you about it, you are going to assume that this is a fairy tale and it does not happen in real life. So stage 4 says that in every adventure story, when the hero is in the pothole and it all looks like it's going wrong and nothing can help him or her, that if you then go back to what your skills are, to what you're good at, and you just employ those skills, however irrelevant they seem, a mystery stranger will appear from the mists and change the story for you. Right? So I read this and I thought it was ridiculous, but I kind of loved it. Okay, there was something about it that really appealed to me. This idea that actually it doesn't matter. It's not about trying to fix the problem. It's not about trying to climb out of the pothole. It's just about trying to do what you are good at. So I went back into work on the Monday and I thought, if I just spent today just doing what I'm good at, what would I do? I thought, well, actually I'm quite good at content strategy. So I'll think about really how can I tailor this site so that it completely appeals to my new boss. I'm quite good at persuading people that they should let me interview them. So I'm going to make a list of all the people that I really want to interview, and I'm just going to badger them until they say yes. And on that list was a woman who was the CEO of a very big advertising agency. And I literally sent her one email, and she came straight back, and she was like, yep, love to. She called me up, and she said, I'm really happy to do this interview, but I want to talk about some stuff that I've never talked about publicly before. Which if you're a journalist, you're like, yes, win. And she was like, I really want to talk about what it's like to be the CEO of a really big organization when you have breast cancer. And then when you decide you want to have children and you have to go through 10 rounds of IVF in order to have them. I thought, okay, this is fantastic. Great. She was really open. She was really honest. It was a wonderful interview. I put it up on the site. Lots of people read it. And the next day, my new boss came around to my desk and she said, Harriet, I saw that you interviewed Carrie Hindmarsh. I said, yes, I did. And she said, yeah, great interview. I said, thanks. She said, I saw the interview because Carrie sent it to me. I said, did she? I said, yes, she did. Because she's actually my former mentor and one of my best friends, and she sent me an email saying your site is the best thing she's seen in women's publishing in 10 years, and if I don't make it a success, I'm a complete fool. My mystery stranger literally appeared from the mists. And what's really interesting about work and about life, which is when you have one win, they start rolling in. And sometimes it is just about finding that one win, either big or small, to kind of get the ball rolling. So a few weeks after this had happened, when we were back up and everything was exciting, I was really energized again, got an email from a colleague who worked in a different department. And the email said, Harriet, we've been approached by this publishing company. They have a woman, she's got a book. They kind of want to do an event with us to promote her book. I don't know if it's very interesting. Might be one for you. See what you think. She's called Sheryl Sandberg. And I was like, yeah, that is quite interesting. I'll take that one, thanks. And so we had Sheryl Sandberg come and do an event quite similar to this with us for 400 people. And I'm going to be honest, I have never worked so hard in my life. It's a different level of work. She came into the building and she was in our building for 2 hours. In those 2 hours, she ran a mentoring session for 15 women. She signed 200 books. She did a meet and greet with 50 people. And then she did an onstage Q&A in front of 400. And then she left in 2 hours. I mean, that's more than I achieve in a month. And I was in awe for the entire time she was there. I just couldn't believe that I was in her presence. And she's a charming, charming woman. But when she left, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how she does that. Like, how do you have the energy to do all of that? I felt it was really far away from who I was and what I could achieve. About a week later, when I'd kind of calmed down a bit, I looked back at it and I was still thinking about how did she achieve all of that? And I realized she didn't. Her team did. So yeah, she came in. She'd literally come off a flight. So she got off the flight, came in, got changed, but she had somebody there to help her change. When she was running that mentoring group, she had somebody to usher all the women in and usher them out again so that it stuck on time. When she was signing books, she had somebody sending a book in from that side. She would sign it, somebody taking the book out from that side. When she did that meet and greet, she had people in the room mingling around so that everyone felt like they were being talked to and being looked after, even if it wasn't by her directly. Basically, she had a support team in place. I cannot emphasize enough how your career will change when you put a support team in place. Now, yeah, it can be great if that support team is big enough that it comes with a private jet and your own hair and makeup. I'm not going to lie, that's the goal for all of us. But anything you can do really, really helps. So, for example, my support team includes a great friend who I talk to when I'm really worried about my time management, because she is the most efficient, most organized person I know. And when I feel like everything's spiraling out of control, she has tips for getting it back under control. I have somebody who is my official clothing guru. I'm not a natural fashionista. I never know what to wear to anything. I email her, she tells me. I have somebody who is a really great strategic career coach. So she's very senior. When I'm having a problem, I email her and she comes back with a really Machiavellian type strategy to deal with it. Think about the stuff that maybe you're not great at or that you need support with, and look around you and see who could help you do that. Who could help you be better at that? Who can help you prep for a meeting? Who can be in that meeting with you to back you up? Find your support team. And then also make sure that you're in somebody else's support team, because it's quid pro quo, and at some point you might need them. So that's what I learned from Sheryl Sandberg. It's very useful. I've taken it with me. But actually, the most exciting person that I've met while I've been doing this job is Arianna Huffington. She launched the Huffington Post, very modestly named after herself, and she's a complete visionary. So if you're in the kind of newspaper industry, she has completely changed it. And she came to The Guardian to do an interview with us. That interview is going to be filmed. And every morning, The Guardian has something called Morning Conference. So that's where we get all the journalists together and the editors of the key sections talk about what's coming up in their section that day. And we'll have a bit of a discussion about big issues in the news. Guardian is pretty much a 50-50 organisation. But Morning Conference is a bit of a strange thing, because the majority of people who talk are men. And it's a bun fight. So everyone talks over each other, everyone jumps in, people really do question, they'll really push people on issues. It's quite overwhelming the first few times you're in it. Arianna comes into Morning Conference. It's completely packed because everybody wants to see Arianna. And she's there to talk about her book, Thrive, which is all about the importance of well-being and how you need that in your life to be successful. I cannot tell you what she did to these journalists. It was like watching somebody hypnotize them. Everybody sat on the floor, legs crossed. Everybody gazed up at her as she spoke. There was absolute silence. You could hear a pin drop. And at the end, when it came to questions, everybody neatly raised their hand. I'd never, ever seen that before in Morning Conference. The final thing is that generally in our Morning Conference, what happens when we have a guest is that they'll finish answering questions, and then in some weird kind of group think moment, everybody will just stand up and leave. There's no kind of applause, there's no thanks for coming, there's no, just up, out. Except with Arianna, where everybody applauded and couldn't wait to speak to her. The only other person that's ever had applause in Morning Conference is David Attenborough. So that's the kind of national treasure level we're at. So again, I was in awe of what she'd done and in awe of how she had done it. And I couldn't really work out how she'd cast this spell until I watched back the video interview that we did. And I realized that she does something which is so simple and so obvious that we are all in fact doing it now. She breathes. But she breathes really, really consciously. So every time she takes a breath, she knows exactly how much air she needs to get through her sentence. And she doesn't mind if she has to leave a little bit of silence in order to do that. She'd much rather take a full breath and give herself a moment to think than run out of steam. It's really hard to leave that silence. But when you start to do it, and when you start to practice it, and when you start to breathe consciously, it changes what you say, and it changes how you say it. It changes your presence in a room. It's immensely powerful. I'm going to finish with the piece of advice that I now kind of take with me when I'm making my daily decisions. So, proceed until apprehended. Still the one that I live by. I love it. Does get you into trouble sometimes, but generally it's a pretty good one. But there's one other thing that I've learned that I think is really important, and we don't talk about enough, particularly when it comes to women. About a year or so ago, I got chatting to a woman on Twitter. I mean, I say I got chatting. She basically stalked me on Twitter, and I thought, either talk to her or my life is potentially in danger. And we got on really well, and we ended up going out for lunch together. And during the course of this lunch, she said, you know what, I know some really great, very senior women that you should talk to, that you could interview. Do you want me to introduce you to them? I said, oh my God, that's really kind of you, thanks. You know, that would be great, but I know how busy you all are, so if you don't have time, that's totally fine. Carried on chatting, and then she said, actually, do you know what, I know this really great career coach. She'd give you some free sessions if you wanted. Do you want me to put you in touch? And I was like, oh, God, that's so nice of you. Thank you. But I don't want her to feel that she has to. Like, you know, I'd obviously pay her. I you know, feel very uncomfortable with that. Carried on chatting. And then she said, actually, Harriet, I don't know if you know this, but I'm part owner in a spa. What are you doing this weekend? Come and get a massage. And I went, oh my gosh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. But really, don't feel you have to. And she looked at me and said, Harriet, I've just offered you some amazing interviews. I've offered you a career coach, and I've just offered you a free massage. Say yes. So we tell women a lot to say no to stuff. And I think that's true, right? Say no to the stuff you do not want to do. Say no to the stuff that is not worth your time. Know what you are worth and know whether that stuff should be going to somebody more junior than you. That's very important. But also, say yes. Don't worry about how you're going to do it. Don't worry about whether it'll work out. Don't worry about if it's the right thing. If you want to do it, if there's some part of you that thinks that sounds exciting, that would be a great thing, say yes and do it, because you will work it out later. And that is how I came to be here today. So thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to your questions.